Popeyes Chicken pulls off a brilliant and somewhat scary publicity stunt, and Chinese spies might be after you. This is a Propaganda Report. I'm Brad Binkley here with Monica Perez. Monica, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just trying to avoid the hurricane. I feel like it's going to come around the sun. I mean, all this blue sky, I know it's an illusion.
I can barely stand up. Just the winds are knocking me down. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I have somebody walk behind me and just whip my rain jacket so it looks like it's getting whipped around. That is until the winds actually come.
It reminds me of that crazy video, which I've seen debunked, but I think the debunking is not right. Did you ever see that crazy video of the guys in, is it Saudi Arabia or something, during the Gulf War? Maybe they're CNN guys, I think, and they're like faking war stuff. Do you remember that's really famous? There's like a blue screen behind them.
I think I know what you're talking
laughing,
about. I know
and
that I've seen like a handful of those.
Yes. I never know if it's real or not, but whenever I see the hurricane people, I always think that behind, like if you just pan out, you'll see that it's like really a green screen or there's a big fan there.
Didn't Geraldo put on a big stunt like that? Or is it
Geraldo Rivera?
Geraldo or Geraldo?
Geraldo Rivera. I think his name is Jerry Rivers,
right.
But he says it's Geraldo Rivera.
Only white nationalists say Geraldo, so it's Geraldo.
Yes, that would be. I don't know. Oh, yeah, maybe. I can't remember, but I do think that once you pointed out the hurricane thing, it just cracks me up. Because they have been busted for that, right? Like faking massive.
Journalists have been busted for over-dramatizing their situation. I think...
Oh, so much.
I think it was Geraldo.
Some of those pictures are so funny.
I think he was pretending to be in the middle of like an attack or something.
Yeah.
And he was really far away from it. Kind of like Hillary when she acted like she was dodging bullets or she said she was dodging bullets when she was in another country, but they actually had video of her just walking openly across a tarmac.
And how about, didn't Brian Williams go down because he said that he was in the thick of things and it was a complete lie?
And how is it okay that he's just back and a deliverer of the news?
He's not, is he?
Yes, he's been back for a long time.
Brian Williams?
He is
made
back
a comeback?
He's been on MSNBC for at least the past year and a half, and he's got a show, and he delivers the news, and he says the same stuff, condescending stuff, and he calls Trump a liar just like everybody else, and nobody cares. This guy just made up a bunch of stuff.
When he did this crazy interview with Edward Snowden. So Edward Snowden is like the world's most wanted, and he's holed up in Russia under tight security. We can't find him anywhere. And Brian Williams just like strolls into some hotel lobby and has an interview with him, broadcasted on national TV at prime time. And I just called BS on it. I was like, this is ridiculous. That guy is not in Russia. He's a CIA agent, whatever. Speaking about Edward Snowden. And I remember people saying to me, but this is Brian Williams. He is not going to lie. And then like within a year, he was completely busted for a lie so big that it got him fired.
And you know what? A lot of the people who are watching him right now, these younger people they target, this is another reason to target the younger people. They're not going to have any recollection of that.
I have thought about that, like how you're certain things in history can't repeat while people still have memory of them. And I wonder if the world would be a better place if human beings lived longer or had longer memories and just said, hey man, I remember it. You're not, but I don't think so. I don't think your memory lasts as long as your lifetime.
No, it doesn't. And the way that they're funneling information at us so quickly and overwhelming us, and the way the truth conflicts so often, that they can kind of wipe stuff from people's memory if they want to, and they can change the past just by repeating something over and over and over again that's not true.
How about the fact that Democrats are anti-truthers now?
That's unbelievable.
Don't these people remember when they were just like, the Republicans did it? They did it, and now they're just like, you're a conspiracy theorist. I'm like, but you're the Democrat. Like, what? How do you not, whatever happened to that?
Yeah.
More people thought it was an inside job then. than now. And that's not usually how it works.
Yeah, now you're like a Klan member if you think it's an inside job. It's ridiculous. But
Did you hear Biden say that we're going for truth over facts?
Yeah, I did.
It was so like they're like, it doesn't matter whether you're right or not. If you believe in conspiracy theories, you're
Speaking of
Republican.
Biden, did you see that? Who's it? Isaacson is stepping down.
Yes, because of Parkinson's. Yeah,
and there was just a mass call on social media for Stacey Abrams to step. She's not going to, but for her to step up and run for that office. Yeah,
the two names I thought of. Erickson already said them on WSB today, but the two names I thought of were Sonny Perdue. Sonny Perdue, and the other one was John Ossoff. I figure he'll make, because we have 2 Senate seats opening up next year.
Yeah, John Ossoff is going to take a break from playing beer pong like he's been doing for the past 18 months and sending out canned fundraising emails, and he's going to go do another robotic campaign for his dad, who's never been mentioned anywhere, never pictured in any campaign, who the only thing that I can find of him online is him riding around in his personally built yacht in China with a Chinese flag on it with Chinese government officials. But yeah, John Ossoff is homegrown.
Well, this vote young is definitely going to work in his favor. But the thing about Sonny Perdue, so I told a story about the chicken farmers recently getting aid in this, it is like government aid to make up for retaliatory tariffs from China. Remember I explained that the other day? Did that make sense to you? Do you understand the problem?
Say it again.
The other day on the air, I mentioned on this show, on Drive Time Prop, that Sonny Perdue is delivering something like a $500 million relief package to agriculture to make up for retaliatory tariffs imposed or allegedly imposed by China. That's hurting our farmers. And the AJC reported that a lot of that money was going to go to the poultry industry, and most of the poultry industry is in Georgia. So as I read the article, at the end of it, it said the poultry industry is pretty excited because it's been 4 years since they've taken that big demand hit, because they were barred from selling any poultry in China since 2015 and an outbreak of the avian flu. So there's no way that tariffs or retaliatory measures by China barring U.S. goods into China is going to hurt them, because they cannot sell anything in China. So that seemed like a scam to me. Then I looked, I was like, does Sonny Perdue scam for his cronies? And there are plenty of articles that says he does. And my family or I should say my mom just loves Sonny Perdue, because my son, who has Down syndrome, when he was in kindergarten, they went to do the Christmas tree lighting at the governor's mansion. And Sonny Perdue was the governor and brought him up on stage. This kid is like, if you've ever met a 5-year-old who has Down syndrome, trust me, you don't want to put him on stage, put him on, I think it was on TV. He took, and Sonny says to my son, like, he's like, okay, we're going to count down till we light the light. So they're asking my kindergartner with Down syndrome to count backwards. And this kid is a runner. So like, he runs away and thinks it's funny.
I mean, half people that don't have Down syndrome can't count backwards.
Can't count backwards on the stage in front of the on TV with the governor and his wife. So my son takes the microphone away from Sonny Perdue and like puts it against his mouth. Ugh. And he's like, counts like 10. No, I was pretty proud that he could actually do it, but it was super, super funny and really, really cute. And it actually worked out. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe even his teachers allowed it, but it worked out. It was fun, and it was super cute. And like, my mother, to this day, I mean, the last time I talked to my mother, which was on my son's birthday, which is Ron Paul's birthday, she said, you gotta write to Sonny Perdue. You gotta tell him. We still love him for that. He's what a nice guy, right? I mean, you could just tell. I'm like, that's what politicians do. But I hate to be disloyal to Sonny Perdue, but he does have, and you know what? Every politician's going to have an article like that written about him. But he was in ag. And the one dot I did not connect was that he brought, I don't know about him, but the ICE raids were at poultry manufacturers certain number. And I just wondered if there was a cronyistic element to that, if that would shut down those poultry manufacturers just in time for the other guys to split $500 million. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really could have been massively corrupt. And then when I heard Isaacson was stepping down, I wondered if Sonny Perdue would come back and do that. He might be, I guess he's not too old to be Secretary of Agriculture, so he could come back for that. I don't know. And Ossoff. So that Senate thing is a big deal.
So you think Ossoff and Sonny Perdue are going to run? Is that the two you said?
I was just saying those are the two names that came to mind. We have two. Normally, you only have one senator every 3 years, I guess, something like that. Can't be every 3 years, but every so often, like they stagger it. So in 2020, one of the senators is only going to get a 2-year term, and the other senator is going to get a 6-year term. Because Isaacson has 3 years left. He's going to bow out at the end of 2019. The governor, I think normally the way it works is the governor appoints somebody to take the place until there's a special election on the next calendared election day, which is next November, presidential election day. And that person will just finish out Isaacson's term. So they don't screw up the number. Every 2 years, 33 or whatever new senators hit D.C., and they don't mess with that, so that you don't have a whole freshman class like you do for congressmen. So somebody's going to run for a 2-year term, and somebody's going to run for a 6-year term.
I wonder if when the freshmen congressmen and senators get to Washington, if they might not realize it, but I wonder if they're just ambushed and surrounded by agents of espionage within the country and those from outside of the country, because
absolutely, yeah.
They're the new targets that people want to compromise, and they're probably even the ones that aren't, even the ones that are almost impossible to corrupt are probably just having to watch their back at every second. Watch their
they
drinks.
Don't know. And how about when they get invited to the parties? Like I think it said in the Franklin cover-up where they get invited to the parties and they get roofied or whatever, and then they get pictures taken of themselves in compromising positions, and then they are owned.
Yeah, it's like that. Some of that Epstein stuff we talked about, by donating money and getting people to accept money, that compromises them, especially after he had already been arrested. So after he's arrested, if he's donating all this money to these foundations and they don't have a process where they're really vetting the money, and they're just taking it in because it's a big check and they're just focused on what they want to do and not on who's funding it, then it could be pretty easy to attach his name to somebody, and that was probably a tactic for him. Now you're attached to me, so you're going to do what I say.
But I think that they probably follow that through and say, hey, we love you, we're giving you all this money, come on a weekend trip to the Caribbean. It wasn't called Lolita Island. They maybe didn't. Well, I guess you're saying it was happening after.
This was after, so they didn't know. So that's, if you're going down there after, you're in trouble. But you're right. You invite some people, you give them money, you say, let's go on a trip on my plane. Let's go down here. And simply by getting on the plane and stepping on the island, if you step on a plane, there's a bunch of underage girls in bikinis and people are taking pictures. There's nothing you can do.
Well, also, I think the way he got a slap on the wrist and then had that PR campaign to rehabilitate his image, I don't think people knew this was going to happen. I don't think people knew that there was going to be any fallout.
Oh, the stuff right now?
Yeah, I mean, if you were an MIT professor, you're not going to be like, I'm not going with you. I know what's coming. It's like, it's over. I get away with everything.
Yeah, I think a lot of them probably didn't care. But I'm just saying that if there were people that were harder to compromise, and the way that spies recruit and compromise people, then they have to use coercion. And it's easy to use people's need for money.
Either way, bribery or blackmail or both.
Right. So it's challenging. We'll touch on some of that stuff a little bit later.
But can I just
go ahead,
the Epstein thing, I just wanted to point out that yesterday when I said, one of those chicks is an actress and it's not being reported that she's an actress. Isn't that weird? And I don't want to out them because this seems like a real psyop, and I don't want, just outing this chick makes me nervous. I said that on the air. And I've gotten all sorts of reports that my Twitter feed went down right after that. And I did get it back up. It just asked me to verify myself and all that. It was fine. But it was a weird coincidence because I never say that.
It did. It said...
And it just went down.
It posed you had to click because it said there might be sensitive material because it's had strange activity. And then when you click on it, it shows your profile, but it showed that you weren't following anybody. It said you were following 0 people. But then you click on your followers, and that was still there. But now it looks normal.
Yeah, I just reset. I said, if you want to restart this process, you need to verify who you are and click a bunch of
I was
things.
trying to figure out what they might have done that for. And it might possibly be what you were just talking about. But the whole crisis actor thing, accusing somebody of being a crisis actor.
But I wasn't.
I know you weren't, but...
She's an actress.
Right. So, but the way that it was... You posted that with the photo below. You said that, and then the photo of her you had below looked just like one of those collage photos of the crisis actors, person at the same Boston Marathon, at all the same tragedies, and the one so it looked like you were doing that from. When you
I
click
realized
on it,
why, because I put 2 pictures up. One was her headshot from IMDb. And the other was a screenshot from the video where she was crying about Epstein. So it totally looked like one of those where like fake crying. And that's true. I didn't mean to at all. I was just like, she's an actress, see? Why are they not reporting that? That's a weird thing. They say she was his personal masseuse, but she was in The Hangover, like at that time. You know, why was she doing this? That seems weird.
What was her role in The Hangover?
I didn't investigate that. I clicked on it to make sure it was The Hangover, not like some Taiwanese version of The Hangover, and it had the same guys. I don't know who they were. I figured she was a bridesmaid or something. Maybe she was the bride, actually. Let's see.
I'd have to look her up because you can be in The Hangover and have a small role and not really make very much money. And
right. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. I personally have been in movies. I've had small roles. Arguably, somebody could make the same argument about me. I'm on IMDb. I get what you're saying.
I just don't understand why they would say you might know her. Like, it's amazing that this person who you might know is a witness, was abused by Jeffrey Epstein. Like, normally you use your celebrity.
They say
yeah,
the name
you normally use your celebrity.
Right. I'm interested to know, because he probably was promising them modeling jobs or I'll help you do whatever. And that's
the accusation was that chick in Santa Monica.
Do I know?
The first accusation was that chick in Santa Monica who said he offered her some kind of modeling thing, and he was attached to the Victoria's Secret guy whose models are big, and that MC2 whatever modeling guy, that guy who disappeared. So he definitely had that kind of thing. But yeah, it might be. Let's see.
There was somebody in Atlanta who did that, who exploited people.
She was a bridesmaid. I thought she was a bridesmaid, so I recognized her.
Yeah.
That's something.
That's interesting. Like
she was on Enlightened. She was Shauna in a TV series called Enlightened. She was Leanne in a TV show called, I don't know.
How many credits does she have?
Short called Balance. 8 credits as an actress.
Does it say she plays herself as a Jeffrey Epstein victim at the bottom?
It does not say that, which is why I think I should not. I think I'm completely within the realm of. I'm not saying that.
Well, maybe it's not updated yet. You never know.
Never know. Anyway, I just think it was newsworthy. No,
it is. It's definitely.
And they didn't. And they did not.
Whenever
note
they omit things like that, it's always interesting. It's like, why did they leave this piece of information out?
Yeah, I think it would have been really interesting.
Because that is the most frequently used and probably powerful propaganda technique, is omitting vital facts which change the meaning of what we're witnessing or what we're learning about.
Well, they'll probably come out with it now. I've noticed that every once in a while. Hello?
Yes, hello.
Oh, sorry. I've noticed that every once in a while that I'll say something like that. And then maybe other people notice it at the same time, but the narrative, I think I might have changed a narrative or two over the years by saying something like that.
That's definitely not impossible.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me. Definitely not impossible?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely impossible.
What? Did she drop out?
Yes,
Kristen
she
Gillibrand?
did. Yes, she did.
I've decided that it's no longer definitely not impossible. My candidacy is definitely impossible.
Definitely impossible.
I'm dropping out to support whoever I'm told to support here in a few months.
Because I really believe in fill in name here.
I'll be spending my time in my adult cheerleading squad league.
Or at Nexium with her dad.
Oh, there you go. This stuff is just crazy. You have her with Nexium. You got Kamala Harris. Harryless. Is that what? With the Knights Templar thing, you got Joe Biden, who, whether he's putting on an act or not,
he's completely. Come on, don't
I'm
say
sure
that.
he's putting on an act.
Okay,
He's just
come
mindless.
on. Come on.
How are these people even?
Joe 300.
People with just clear red marks, red flags that nobody talks about and everybody's okay with. Raising millions upon millions of dollars in fundraising from people who are just like, oh, I don't care. Knights Templar money, take it, whatever.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind. I guess it lowers the bar so that when the person they pick, when all their scandals are exposed, then it's like, yeah, well, all the others were a lot worse. So that's really what it is. It's lowering the bar so low.
Well, that's what Biden's wife said.
Yeah.
So her point was actually Gillibrand says definitely not impossible, but it's definitely impossible. Joe's motto is definitely not impossible. Like that,
Yeah.
they're vying for the privilege to plausibly say definitely not impossible. And I'll tell you stuff like this. So it looks so obvious to me that Trump's going to win.
Trump's going to win. It's so
I
obvious.
know, but like I get that stuff wrong.
You're right.
They're always one step ahead of me. It drives me crazy. I owe somebody $50 for betting on Stacey Abrams announcing that she's going to run. I'm not giving up on that yet, but don't put money on stuff like that. I don't know.
There's no good
see
candidate.
The trends, but I don't get I get the strategy, I get the trends, but the tactics from day to day, they are one step ahead of me because they have the resources to be, and they've taken the lead.
The strongest candidate is Bernie Sanders.
Or Elizabeth Warren or Joe Biden. I mean, that's just not.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, Joe
unbelievable.
Biden, the way the way he's being presented is not as a strong candidate. The way Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, they're being presented as stronger candidates. Stacey Abrams and Bernie Sanders, I could possibly see that happening.
Bernie Sanders is so old. Isn't
I know.
He just losing that.
Did you see Elizabeth
edge?
Warren charging up that golf course,
No.
sprinting like she was a
I missed
400
it.
runner?
I never watch TV.
People were going nuts
news
because
TV.
she was like doing like a 4.40 just waving to people. And my guess is that her campaign strategist, they set it up to illustrate that she's younger, that she's in good shape because she's close to 72, I think.
So is she really running?
Oh, yeah.
I think, yeah, she looks 70.
She was hauling ass.
I don't mean running. I mean, is she really trying to win? And her motto would be, nevertheless, she persisted.
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell gave her that one.
Yeah.
I called it the day he said that. I was like, she's running, and her motto is going to be, nevertheless, she persisted.
If she was in a debate against Joe Biden, she'd probably step into the middle of the stage and start doing burpees and push-ups just to show that she can do what Joe can't. Come on, Joe.
Listen to this. I was just typing. I was going to look for her wiki so I could tell you how old she was. Guess, obviously, you can guess now. What's the first search term on Google? Elizabeth Warren.
Pocahontas.
Age,
yeah, okay.
70 exactly.
I thought so.
She was born in 1949.
So, yeah, she's older than she seems. Her and Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg did it first because the thing kept popping up into my Twitter. That's the drawback from following all the progressives as well and signing up to all those email lists is every day I get these Twitter ads saying, do you want to come have pizza with Pete, Mayor Pete, and wherever, Notre Dame, wherever he's from? Come on up and have pizza with Pete. Enter the contest and you can sit down and talk policy with Pete. No, I don't need pizza with Pete. Thank you. The next day, it's want to grab a beer with Elizabeth Warren. No, I don't want a beer with Elizabeth Warren. I don't want to enter a contest. I don't want to give you any money.
Well, Bernie is 77, and he just looks like an old communist chairman. Like, he's just too old. But it's funny because one of her books, Elizabeth Warren's books from 2014, this is because I just Googled and this is what popped up. It's called A Fighting Chance. I feel like everybody's motto is just like, definitely not impossible. Hey, I'm telling you, I got a chance. My husband is the best you're going to do. Like, none of these things are very compelling political campaign taglines.
Vote for me because I'm kind of good.
Exactly. What you got, man? I have a lot of stuff, but you don't want what I have here, which is Elizabeth Warren's tax idea. You want to hear about Elizabeth Warren's tax idea?
Certainly not over a beer with her. I would not like to. And maybe I'd like to talk about Popeyes.
Oh, yes. I want to hear about that. That is absolutely top of the news cycle. Let's hear it.
So if you're unaware of not you, but everybody listening, if you're not aware of what's going on with Popeyes, is Popeyes just conducted a very, very successful, profitable public relations stunt where they were rolling out what they announced as August 12th. They announced their first ever chicken sandwich. It's going to be available nationally in all of their restaurants. I mean, this is like a big event they were rolling out, and they made this tweet.
They never had a chicken sandwich before?
They had special events, chicken sandwiches
available. So this is a new menu item.
Yes. Apparently a long-awaited one the way people talked about it. Like, people are sitting around going, man, if only Popeyes had a chicken sandwich.
And why didn't they think of that? Like, who could have thought of a chicken sandwich?
We can put bread on either side of this.
Right. I know it's a radical idea. No one's ever done it before.
There's good bread on both sides of that chicken, Trump might say.
I can't believe nobody ever thought of that before.
Well, yeah, I want to look into their marketing team. I wonder if they've done this type of stuff frequently. But what they did a publicity stunt that really illustrates the state of America today, and it foreshadows what's going to happen and what we're going to be subjective to and the way we're going to be torn apart unless we stop reacting to it. So I think it's good to take note of, because here's what they did. They posted an image of a beautiful and delicious-looking chicken sandwich on August 12th, and then they put their little tweets where it told what was going on that was being released. And, then I didn't hear about it at all until a week later on August 19th. Chick-fil-A, which regularly tweets, so it's not like they just tweeted out of nowhere. Chick-fil-A tweeted a picture of their sandwich, something that they do quite often. They tweet pictures of their food.
What else are they going to tweet?
Right, yeah.
I mean, I tweet pictures of their food.
I don't see their employees. I'm not a cannibal. I'm not going to eat their employees. So on that tweet, they wrote something about them being, the original chicken sandwich, one of their mottos. And nowhere did they mention Popeyes. Nowhere did they make a reference. Nobody in their right mind would read that and think, "Oh my gosh, this is a response. They're coming at Popeyes." No, it had nothing to do with Popeyes whatsoever. They probably didn't even know what Popeyes was doing.
Right.
But Popeyes comes and they reply on Chick-fil-A's post. So
that's uncool.
Right. So Chick-fil-A's was an original post. It wasn't a post to Popeyes. And their post, all it said was something like, "You mad, bro?" ? Something like, "Are you all right, bro?" Something like that. That's it. Very, very minor.
That's kind of funny.
That was the only interaction that Chick-fil-A and Popeyes had. Chick-fil-A did not reply to it. They didn't take the bait. Mm-hmm. Nobody at Chick-fil-A made a statement. They were asked for a statement. They didn't make a statement about it. Nothing happened. Yet, if you entered this little thing in the middle of it without knowing that, like I did, you would think that Chick-fil-A and Popeyes had been slugging it out for years, that they were old arch rivals and they were finally having the debate. The chicken wars had finally culminated into this Chick-fil-A versus Popeyes chicken sandwich. Which one is better? That's when I entered it, because that was when it was trending, is when that was going on. You have no idea that Chick-fil-A has in no way done anything to be involved in this. So they've just been pulled in, and people are acting like they're involved in it, because what Chick-fil-A didn't respond, but here's the other people that responded. Wendy's jumped in and said, well, our chicken sandwich is the best. And Wendy's did a little back and forth. They gave Popeyes the little controversial fight that they were looking for. This is a technique that's used all the time in marketing.
Right.
It's create fake controversy and attack like your biggest arch rival, because it's going to draw attention to you. And a lot of times people play along with it, just like they do in politics. They play along with it. But other times people do not play along with it, just like in politics, but it doesn't matter. Other people can make it look like you're engaging in the fight, even if you're not. Like Chick-fil-A wasn't. So Wendy's jumps in. Everybody mocks Wendy's because Wendy's sucks, Nobody cares about Wendy's. Steak and Shake even jumps in. They play around a little bit. Everybody mocks Steak and Shake. Nobody cares about it. The real battle is not between Steak and Shake and Wendy's and Popeyes. They don't matter. And there's a reason they don't matter. The real battle is between Chick-fil-A and Popeyes. The reason Popeyes did not want to blow up the Popeyes versus Wendy's or versus Steak and Shake is because there's no polarizing tension that can be exploited there. There's no racial tension that can be exploited there. There's no political undertones that just reverberate through it. That is why it had to be Chick-fil-A, because Chick-fil-A is the Donald Trump in this scenario. They're a proxy. Yes. And they're racist, they're bigots, they're homophobics, they're everything that Popeyes is not. And Popeyes was positioned, and this was echoed in a lot of in articles I saw and in tweets that people made as the non-controversial, good, all that's good about humans alternative to the evil, racist, homophobic chicken over at Chick-fil-A. So this was progressives versus the racist right wing, and it worked too. All they had to do was tweet that one thing in reply, trigger some people, and then get a little bit of fights with Wendy's, and then social media took off. The digital herd took off. It's a top trending hashtag, and everybody's got something to say. And the reason people are saying it is because they see it through a political lens. They see, I ain't going to eat Chick-fil-A. They're racist. Finally, Popeyes has it. Finally, we got a good chicken sandwich. And people would start. So the first comment underneath the Chick-fil-A thing, when Chick-fil-A posted it, had been made, I think, on August 20th. And it was not the most recent comment. It said, you should try, because Chick-fil-A had said what their ingredients are on their sandwich. And the first comment said, oh, you forgot one ingredient, all your homophobia. And it was from somebody who had like 3 followers.
Right.
So
established on, joined Twitter August 25th, 2019. So I've gotten a few of those lately.
Every single reference that was political or racially divisive was showing up at the top of this. So people were making other statements, but the ones that social media were showing us were the ones that were making it political in nature and racially divisive in nature. And it just, there was news stories about it, articles about it. I mean, it was a phenomenon. And it was interesting because it was the type of phenomenon. We talk about fake news causes real crime or real problems sometimes. Not that this is crime, but fake news causes real long lines at Popeyes. And So how was the sandwich? Sorry.
Oh,
I don't know. I didn't have the sandwich.
They were out of them.
Yes, and this is what I'm getting to. They the stores ran out across the country, and
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal that, but it's on the news. It was on the radio,
right? And they intentionally did that. The plan was to run out.
Big deal.
It's another one. It's another advertising technique. Is that you offer less than the demand, so that people crave it, and so people are wrapped around the stores. I can't remember what state, maybe Missouri or something like that. The store ran out in 5 hours. People were waiting hours and hours like it's the Nintendo Wii to get this thing. And people were hoarding them. People were buying multiple sandwiches, and they were showing up on like eBay for like $150.
What?
Get this unopened, never touched chicken sandwich from Popeyes for $150. It was madness. And in my neighborhood on Nextdoor, you know what Nextdoor is?
Yeah.
There was somebody who posted saying, don't go down this road that everybody has to take. It's like a popular road people need to go on because the Popeyes there, the cars are wrapped around the building twice, and they are out into the middle of traffic, blocking the entire street while people are waiting to get that chicken sandwich, and it's been that way for like an hour. I mean, it was causing mass hysteria. Now, that happens at Chick-fil-A quite frequently.
Chick-fil-A, exactly. That's what I was thinking. It's like, that does happen at Chick-fil-A. Like, I avoid Chick-fil-A during any, like, 3 hours, within 3 hours of any meal time.
I go inside. It never takes longer than a couple minutes
does
inside.
It not? Okay.
But it ended up, it caused this mass hysteria. And then today, there was a story that said, well, it rooted from a post by Popeyes. They said, uh-oh, we're out. We sold out. We sold out of all of the chicken. All of the chicken are dead. There's no more chicken until we make some more chicken genetically engineered somewhere. We're not going to have another sandwich, so we will no longer be selling chicken sandwiches after next week. So the intent was never to release the chicken sandwich for a long period of time nationally.
Wait, they're not doing it?
No, they posted saying, we've run out. We sold out. Thank you.
I know, but like, surely they had new shipments
of course
already
they did.
The pipeline.
Yeah, but this was the strategy all along. It was going to be a brief thing to bring
right.
brand
so it
awareness.
Wasn't a new menu item. It was just a seasonal, like they do that, a promotional thing.
It was a new menu item on a national scale. They had served a chicken sandwich before, but they had never served it nationally at every store like they did. But they made people believe it was going to be a new menu item for good, and then they pulled it back after it just exploded. And guess what? They'll do the same thing next year for a couple weeks, and it might work again. But the reason that people got up off the couch and they were willing to leave their children at home or leave work, not take care of some responsibility or another, and go wait in line at Popeyes for an hour in the middle of traffic, risking their life and the life of their children that might be in the car with them, is because had nothing to do with wanting to have that sandwich. It's because they were making a political statement just like people who go to the Women's March do. So they were in line because they were taking a stand against Donald Trump. Against I'm serious. They saw Chick-fil-A to them is everything that Donald Trump represents, and that is a large part of what compelled them. You know what? I'm going to do this because I'm going to get a good sandwich, and I'm going to stick it to them. So this was activism combined. This was activism used to make them a lot of money and to get them, I believe it was estimated by some marketing research firm, $23 million worth of social media advertisements for free based on the chatter and mentions by the digital mob, which was they paid a little bit of money to start this and stir it up, and then the digital mob just took over. And the reason it worked is because they weaponized identity politics in the realm of marketing and advertising for a sandwich. And why this is scary is because other businesses, if I'm a unethical, corrupt business owner who doesn't care at all, who's willing to do whatever, just if all I care about is power and profit, then what I see is, wow, all I have to do is inject extremely divisive identity politics into our ads that makes people want to choose a side. And so all I got to do is pick an enemy that I can kind of frame out to be just like Donald Trump or just like the right. And I'm the angel, and people will go because they want to feel like they're taking a stand against authoritarianism and what's going on in this country. So they're exploiting these people. Maybe they got a good sandwich, but the fact is they are exploiting the racial tensions, and they're amplifying them, and they're doing it for their own profit. And businesses are going to do this. They would be dumb not to try it. Look how well it worked. So they're definitely going to try it. They'll make a lot of money off of it, and they'll keep doing it until we stop reacting to it. Because in politics are going to keep doing it, and business are going to keep doing it. We're going to be getting nothing but divisive identity politics in marketing and in politics and media until the public as a whole stops reacting to the provocations.
And didn't you say that exploitation was further exploited? Oh,
it was. And this is what Bernays talks about, and maybe this was orchestrated with them, but I don't think it was. Bernays talked about how when you organize one of these publicity stunts, the propaganda stunts, that you organize a few of them, and by organizing a few of them, other spontaneous types of activism that is similar erupts. So if you just start the dominoes, and so here's what happened. This was hilarious to me. An activist in North Carolina went up to, very smart of this person or whoever told him to do it, went up to a Popeyes where, people had nothing else to do. They're waiting in line for 3 hours for a freaking sandwich, and starts going car to car and registering people to vote. That's a Stacey Abrams move right there. I don't know if she was involved in that at all, but that is a total Stacey Abrams activist move. They would go to bars and stuff, and they would get people, they would get their target market when they were drinking, when they would write their name sloppy so they could claim voter suppression. They could say exact match doesn't work. I mean, that's a setup for that. But he was spouting the indivisible, the resistance talking points, every single one. He was like 16, and he's saying things like, I just think voting is our civic duty as Americans, and I couldn't live with myself if I didn't come up here and try to get more people registered, because that's what we have to do to fight this regime. Just all the talking points. And he registered a good number of people.
I bet.
So, and it's interesting,
and
too.
And she sent people over, you said, to Chick-fil-A also, to on the lines of Chick-fil-A to register those people?
No, nobody went over to register the Christians over at Chick-fil-A. They're already registered, probably.
Everyone. It's like it's like when I had my son and I lived in L.A., the general idea wasn't that pro-choice meant choice. It was like the choice was predetermined. It was when Sarah Palin was running, and she had a child with Down syndrome, and the Democrats hated her so much that they kind of demonized making the quote choice of having a baby with Down syndrome. So I was like, wait, I thought you were pro-choice. Why is it not my choice?
Yeah.
And then, so it just takes it off the.
Right.
It's not really that they just want every young person to register to vote. They just want the people
They want
who are self-selected as anti-Chick-fil-A activists are much more likely to be Democrats.
And it's really brilliant too, that aspect of it. If
that
kid,
is brilliant.
If that kid
actually,
thought
that
of
is
that,
brilliant.
If that kid thought of that on his own, give him a campaign job, because that is the target market. And Stacey Abrams will tell you this on every MSNBC show, every late night show, every CNN show, because she's on them every single day now, and they all say, what's that again? Voter G, or what's it called? FairFightGeorgiaGA.org. This is a marketing campaign for Stacey Abrams' website, just relentless going on right now. And it's a 20-state campaign where she's fighting voter suppression, something which she made up in this last election, which does exist.
And that they deny, that Anderson Cooper denied with her, I think it was his show you told me, right? That they denied that there's illegal voting.
Yeah, the whole
I have known
segment.
So many people who have voted illegally. It was just, it was the thing to do in LA, and even when I was in school, in graduate school in San Francisco Bay Area.
It makes
other
your head
students,
spin.
transfer students, exchange students were voting.
The way that these people can look at the camera and say with such disdain, well, Donald Trump again is spouting the conspiracy theory that there is voter suppression. There's not, but he's saying it anyway, evidence-free. Okay, now here on we have Stacey Abrams, who the rightful governor of Georgia, is going to be telling us about the voter suppression in Georgia. Governor Abrams, could you, it's just the way that they're able to do that without
it's
a conscience.
Imaginary governor.
It's crazy. I think I saw somebody today tweeted when the whole thing broke about Isaacson. Somebody was like, I wonder if Stacey Abrams is going to have to resign the governorship before she runs for the Senate. Right. That's pretty good.
How is her performance these days?
It's robotic.
Shows? Is it still?
Her performance is solid when she's talking to a group of African Americans activists. That's her strong suit.
Right.
She's like a preacher, but when she's on CNN and those other shows, I think she scales it back.
She's out of her groove.
Yeah, she scales it back.
I was thinking with because I remember they used to do that with Obama too. Like, what a speaker! What a great speaker! And it was like he's a regular speaker. Like, it's a little racist to be like, oh, he's such a great, unbelievable speaker.
Yeah, you can only say that if you're a liberal. You're not allowed to say that.
Yes, right. Because what did you expect?
Yeah.
What did you expect? What do you mean by that? So, but here's the thing: is that he actually really got into his role, and Michelle too, who looked like a harpy in the beginning.
She's a good speaker. She's
good. So
good.
I figured something out. I was thinking I was mentioning to my husband that she with or without Obama. So I don't know if the terms of the deal changed, but different articles had different explanations of it. But for her book, and maybe a book of his, I'm not sure. Her book, she got a $65 million advance on her book. And I was doing the math every which way.
It's totally normal. Somebody who's never written a book. Your first book, we'll give you $65 million. How's that sound?
Obama's, you'd have to sell 33 million copies of the book for that to make sense. And Obama had the fourth best-selling biography of the 21st century, something like that. And it wasn't even 1 million copies sold.
Yeah.
So I read that article 3 times about the copies of the book sold. That's what it said. Now, it just doesn't seem even possible to me because he was making $10 million or several $1 million a year, supposedly, from selling the book. Now, my husband pointed out, he said $65 million would make sense easy if it included the book tour. He said she sold out twice.
Mm-hmm.
The O2 in London, which isn't even her country, where she was the first lady.
His country.
50 pounds a seat, which is whatever it is these days, $70, I don't know. And it's thousands, tens of thousands.
That's the model,
seats.
Yeah. That's what Abrams has been doing. She's been touring.
So I have to assume that, well, I'm not assuming, but the $65 million would make sense. But if she has to kick it back. But my point was that these people are this is the created person thing. I mean, they are, because that is not Michelle. You remember Michelle Obama. She was an outspoken person before Obama was president, and they toned her down. They changed her look. They changed her attitude. She was the lawyer lady.
See, I didn't know that.
She was the tough guy. Yeah, she was the tough guy. And then now they just completely changed her, and she's great at it. And
she is very good.
Yeah, she is this created person, and they act all lovey-dovey and stuff. It's so funny.
Have you seen her and George Bush, lovey-dovey?
Oh, I have seen that. There's another, who knows what's...
One more thing about the Popeyes thing. They have... Stacey Abrams' thing is, we want to get as many people of color registered as possible. That was one of the main objectives during her campaign. It's been one of the main objectives during all of her activism training. She teaches activism. She's been training people in activism since at least 2014, funded by George Soros. Her organizations are. Her first organization to do that was funded by him, and all of her organizations at some point in time have been kind of involved in scandals and investigations, and then she separated herself from them. But the idea is to get as many people of color off the couch, to get them registered, and what a great strategy for whoever decided to do this. A bunch of people are already in line, and Popeye's target demographic is going to be more African Americans, obviously, than Chick-fil-A, and especially when it's framed in the context of not only are you getting good chicken, you're sticking it to the man, the totalitarian Donald Trump Chick-fil-A character. So you're already making a political statement. Somebody comes up and knocks on your window. Of course you're going to register to vote. What, you're already in that spirit.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant strategy.
That is genius. It's absolutely genius. You are there in that emotional state for that reason. That is really genius. And I bet you're right. I bet it takes off.
Yeah, we're going to see more of that.
Yep, I agree with that. So, are you ready for another story that I read?
Yeah, hit me with
it. First of all, I just want to mention this thing. They're calling... Have you heard of the Pantaleo effect?
I think you told me the name, but I never got to hear what it is.
Okay. The cop who was fired for an illegal chokehold of Eric Garner, which I remember at the time doing a whole show on that. I mean, I dug into that like nobody's business. It did not appear to me to be an illegal chokehold. And my cousin, who is a New York City police officer, said it was not.
Oh,
and
really?
the guy died because he was fragile. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that it relieves the people of responsibility. I'm just saying he didn't die because it was an illegal chokehold. He died probably because he's like asthmatic and overweight. And
there was a lot of factors. Yeah, it was a violent thing to watch, and it's all terrible. But yes, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, like so I don't know, but like the guy got fired. It was obviously political. The way he was fired was meant to create that dialectical tension, the one side versus the other side for whatever end game they're playing. And I used to just really like hurt my brain trying to crack the code on psyops. I'm a little better at it now. It doesn't hurt my brain.
Yeah.
But I remember when Ferguson first came out, I was like, why are they doing this? Why? And I missed one. One of them is that they wanted to change it. I believe that the militarization of the police, which was happening as a result of like a lot of surplus military stuff coming out of the Middle East, and it was really turning our cops into like RoboCops. They had to get the them versus us versus them thing out of our minds, because then we were all together, like black, white, what didn't matter. It's like those people are scary. So then they made it so that only black people had to be afraid of the cops. It was stupid. It was bad. And that's what they did. But I think. But that I didn't catch that right away. But what I did catch right away was by saying that we needed kinder and gentler policing, pull back on the police. Baltimore said that mayor of Baltimore, I believe it was the mayor of Baltimore, somebody in Baltimore said, pull back, like police stand down or something weird like that. Maybe it was misunderstood, but I think their policy was to kind of back off exactly where policing is needed most, inner cities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I anticipated there would be spikes in crime. And I already realized that the government has to have higher crime than they have because nobody's scared. And the people need to be scared. Anyway, I traced that back, I think, to the 1990s, that criminal justice reform, which was not a good thing. That didn't result in a lot of justice, but because it expanded the net of people who were caught up, it might have reduced crime. I don't know. But crime has gone down since then. And so what they're saying, and this is very dialectical. So this guy got fired. And the articles over the past few days have been that New York City cops now, after the police chief said, I know you cops aren't going to like this. It's bad, 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 bad for cops, bad, bad, bad. As a cop, I would hate this. If I were still a beat cop, I would hate this. They're supposedly like not arresting people anymore, or not. They've chilled out on that because they don't want to get in trouble for doing their jobs like this guy did. So, of course, what happens then? You get a spike in crime. Yeah. But on the other hand, so what happens when you have a spike in crime? You have an increase in calls for more authoritarianism. So the dialectic is, the thesis is cops are out of control. The antithesis is cops have stood down. And the synthesis is always more control at the government level, more regulation, less discretion by the cops, just more centralized control, maybe a nationalized police force instead of local, which I think is very bad. I think you don't want that. There'd be nobody to fool. Like sometimes when you read those stories of like international human trafficking or whatever, stuff that happens at the federal level, like these any kind of crime ring, they have to fool the cops at the local level. So if somebody turns up dead or missing, the local cops are looking and they're like, where are these people? And the feds can't just say, oh, yeah, we got this. Like, well, I've got to get reelected, or this is my neighbor. So I'm a fan of local, not federal. But I think these things play into that. And if you want an example of a dialectic, I think that the cop thing is really a big one. It's going somewhere.
I got an email from, I believe it was Indivisible today, that was talking about the local district attorneys. And they were talking about how the local district attorneys are taking power back.
Wow.
They're changed, just like the George Soros plan that we've talked about for a while, where you get control of the local district attorneys, and then they determine what to prosecute, what not to prosecute. They start to extend the law, the flexibilities there, and this is I say communist. It's a co-opting tactic to put people in these positions of power in these smaller locales where not as many people, where people are passive and they're not aggressive about. Not a lot of fighting over to win certain seats and spots.
Well, some of them are unopposed often.
Exactly.
Like, you ever see that, like the judges and stuff?
Right.
You look at, like, those even running against you. So
and
it doesn't matter.
Vladimir Lenin very much advocated you get in these places where there's nobody running, and then you take over these organizations at the local level, and then you expand out. You're very much still getting orders from the national. You're controlled from the top, but this is how you take over the entire system. And Stacey Abrams is going to be doing that too.
The Pittsburgh guy, one of the articles that came out around the time 2 weeks ago, I think it was, where there was the standoff with the cops and like 6 cops were shot, but nobody died. And remember that guy? Like, we were talking about it.
Yeah.
You do remember? Was it Philadelphia? I think it was Philadelphia. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So somebody came out, one of the politicians, saying this was like a front page story, said, "Oh, this guy's been corrupt ever since George Soros took over the DAs or something." It was so weird. And I mentioned it to you because I never would have thought that would ever rise to the surface. And I didn't know if it was rising to the surface to create some kind of back and forth, some volley, some dialectic. But I noticed it. Then I don't know if it ties in at all, but there was another wrinkle in that Philly case. Did you see JJ and Dean going back and forth about how the shooter, the perp, the guy who shot 6 cops, was an FBI, I think, informant?
I saw that
tweet.
Who
had gotten tons of trouble. Like, he had been in tons of trouble, always got off the hook. And, I mean, to the extent you think that thing was a psyop, they use guys who get arrested and turn informants, stuff like that. Those are the guys who conduct such operations, or the guys who are in bed with law enforcement. And I thought it was a little bit of a tell that nobody died. And the idea was that they were trying to prove the point, if this is an inside job, that cops are in danger making routine calls, and that citizens having that kind of resistance grade weaponry, as I've coined it, is unacceptable. And they were rolling that out after Dayton, and then they put fine points on it with that story. But that story doesn't hold
That's
water.
interesting. Right as you were saying that, I found a headline. I've never heard of this website in my life, bigjolly.com. A little free advertising there. The Big Jolly Times. And the headline says, "Progressives are waging war against those who protect us." And they're talking about the police, obviously.
Wow. Does it say exactly how?
It's
well, the Antifa is
Eric Garner.
Oh my gosh! Oh, it is?
Yeah.
The Pants Leo effect.
Yeah.
It probably says it in there.
Let me see. It says him, but I don't know if it says the effect.
Yeah. So that is the thing. I mean, this is when somebody asks, "What's the dialectic?" The dialectic is they start with one idea, they give you the opposite idea, and out of the middle comes what they really want, the synthesis. And that is always power at the top. But so that is kind of it's the dialectical materialism, or whatever that Marx said.
Yeah.
And isn't that what it was? Dialectical
Something
materialism?
like, yes. His was materialism, yeah.
I don't know what the materialism part I know what materialism is, but, and I actually, to tell you the truth, I think what Mao did in China, like the end game in China right now, is like, I believe, I had a friend who moved there. That's her heritage. She's American, but she moved there and she was just like, this is not what I expected, because her parents were pre-Mao immigrants and they consider themselves different. And over that, she said that it is like very materialistic. And I wondered if that's what dialectical materialism really results in. but I believe also Aristotle said, this is why I hate to confuse it, because I used to actually like this idea. I thought it was Aristotle who said, aim for the thing that is furthest away from your vice, and if you get halfway there, you'll be better off. So when I had to defend being an anarcho-capitalist, I said, look, like our government has such a conflict of interest with us. They trade in our fear, anxiety, our poverty, the danger that we're in. Like that is what they are selling us, protection from that, and it is in their power to make stuff worse. So nothing could be worse than what we have now. And even to the point where democracy provides this shield, this opiate that makes you think that we're all hashing it out. Honestly, I think I read something in Hoppe that said, Hans Hermann Hoppe, that said that that like a typical monarchy had something like 5% taxes and a typical democracy has something like 45% taxes or 35% taxes, like they can really take so much more from you that way. And then so I thought, well, here we are, this terrible system. If we aim for anarcho-capitalism and we end up actually implementing the Bill of Rights, or the Constitution, actually restoring the American experiment, that's not so bad. But that is a kind of dialectical attitude, so it kind of bums me out. But I'm going to say it can be used for good or evil. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, what's not right is when it's imposed upon you deceptively like that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting what you said. It's kind of the same way that Chinese spies or Chinese espionage spies or a drug cartel compromises a target. What the government does to the public, they get the public to compromise their principles and their values by exploiting their fears, their egos, their sexual desire, their financial hardships, whatever. That's the exact same thing that a spy who wants you to turn against your government or whoever you work for, that's the same thing that they do. That's the same thing that a drug cartel might do to try to get a police officer to get a police officer under their thumb, is by exploiting the same types of fears, the same types of ego-driven things and hardships. So, and it's really interesting. I guess the government is a thug, kind of, anyway.
Yeah.
So I'd never thought about it that way until you just said that. So I have a story, I don't think not too long of a story, about Chinese spies being on the
right. I
offensive
thought
here
that's
for
what you were going to...
Yeah, that's what I was headed into.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So,
I know you said you had something like that, but what's it about?
Well, apparently, according to this article in The Atlantic, and I've watched a lot of think tanks about this as well, the kind of ongoing war with China, it's not just a trade war, it's war, technology war, an information war, really. And apparently Chinese spies are amping up their espionage efforts in America, just like we're amping up ours over there. And they're using I don't know necessarily new techniques, but they're using additional techniques that weren't as available until kind of the rise of social media. They're using LinkedIn. And there's a story about there's been 3 former CIA agents who have been compromised by China, allegedly. Well, they've been convicted. I don't know the full details behind the story, so I'm not going to comment on whether or not I 100% believe all of it. But apparently there have been 3 of them who have been convicted of being compromised and being turned into spies for China, being recruited. And yeah. And the way that they got at least one of them was it reached out to him on LinkedIn, and the guy was having financial problems. He had been out of the CIA for a while, and he was trying to launch a new business, and it wasn't working, and he was in debt, and he needed money. And somebody reached out to him on LinkedIn, and it was somebody who has 5 links with him. So there was a level, he didn't know the person, but there was a level of trust because he shared 5 links with him. But people often just accept every link that people send. So it's really not that difficult to get, if you try and link with somebody, if somebody has thousands of links on LinkedIn and you try and link with all of them, you're going to get at least 5 of them. So you might want to be careful with some of the links that you share when people reach out to you, because it's not hard to share links. And it started off with him. The guy was Chinese, and this agent spoke Mandarin because he lived over there for a while and he worked over there, and he had an expertise in, I can't remember what his expertise is, but it was an expertise with some work that he did in China. And so it started off as a small casual conversation, and the guy said that he was from a Chinese think tank and that they wanted to talk to him about his expertise in China and American foreign policy because of his work. And they spoke some Mandarin together, and then it was, after a couple messages, it was a phone call. They talk on the phone about it, and it was very cordial, very businesslike. And then it was, are we going to talk on Skype? We have the face-to-face talk. And at this point in time, you think you know the person, right? You've talked that many times. You've seen him face-to-face. Almost feels like a friend, probably. So your guard is let down at this point, and you think you're going to get out of your problem. You think you have an opportunity to bring in a bunch of money to help overcome the large amount of debt that he had fallen into because of the business he started. And before he knew it, he was flying over to China to meet with this person. And the article goes on to talk about that it's at that point in time when they get them in the plane and on the ground that they likely already have something that they can compromise them with. That they've got them hooked at that point, because this whole time they've been gathering information on him through the questions they ask, through the connections that he has, through the, publicly available information. They obviously knew about his financial hardship. That's why they reached out to him. They look into people's personal background, their family problems. Do they have a family member in prison? Do they have a family member in debt? Do they have a medical issue they're dealing with? And they exploit these struggles that people go through. They exploit depending on what they do, these personality profiles on their targets. They target people who obviously are in positions that can get them information that they need. Whether it's a technological job, they have access to technology or information about new technology. Whether it's a government position, they have access to information that's privileged, classified information perhaps, or whether it's just somebody who has specialized knowledge or who has special relationships with people in certain positions that can help them. So they compromise a friend of the people who are in power, and they can then get them to get stuff from their friend because they're already the trusted individual. And they create dossiers on these people, and they're like, I don't want to say pickup artists, but kind of, in the way that they are able to elicit information from them, win their trust, let their guard down, and then slowly get them to conduct actions like we were talking about Jeffrey Epstein earlier. Jeffrey Epstein wins them over by giving them a bunch of money to play to their egos and their desire to be a top research scientist. This is what the British did in World War I, too. It even talks about it in their papers. They knew that the intellectuals in the universities had big egos. They thought they were so smart, and they knew that they could send somebody over there who they admired that would enable them to boost their standing in their social scene in the universities and to play to that ego.
It's not just that the ego gets them into.
Say that again. I lost you for a second.
Oh, sorry. The ego. It's not just that they play to their ego in that way. So they'll give them make them feel proud and stroke their ego and stuff to appeal to them, to get close to them. But I've also read that the ego makes you very vulnerable to deception.
Absolutely.
Because you don't think you can be outsmarted.
Yeah.
I have been outsmarted by people who are nowhere near as smart as I am, mainly because I just don't expect people to be that bad, like to really try to fool you and cheat you.
Yeah.
And so when they are really good at that, it's actually much less common. Thank God. It's actually quite uncommon. And I think if you are great at that, you might just become a politician. So maybe it's like much more heavily weighted to being in some kind of high level position where deception can get you some serious success. But I think the ego works in two ways. One is you like it being stroked, and two is it makes you stupid.
Yes. And especially in the case of the World War I, when the person who is coming over there to see you is a celebrity in the intellectual social scene, that they sent over literary people that these intellectuals admired. And so they have a hero coming over here, and this hero is buttering them up. And so they automatically are just in awe to be in this person's presence. And meanwhile, this person is seeding information. He's getting information about them.
Interesting. Because there's so many people that you could name that were kind of, I mean, people say everyone from L. Ron Hubbard to George Orwell to Graham Greene, who did The Quiet American. Those that they all were in intelligence.
It would not surprise me because they target the people that have the most influence over the biggest amount of people. And they target people who are leaders of different groups of society. That's what Edward Bernays wrote. Do what?
Even Roald Dahl. Sorry.
Who's that?
Talked over you. Roald Dahl, the guy who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, they thought he was a spy?
He is? Well, I think that's
He's probably
evidence.
dead now, right?
Yes, he's dead.
So they have two frameworks, at least a couple frameworks that the CIA uses. The acronym for one of them is MICE. And this is a framework for the motivation for coercing a spy or compromising a spy into, pretty much backing them into a corner. Some people want to do it. Some people find it exciting. Some people have a grudge against somebody. They oftentimes exploit a grudge as well. But the people that they can't, they gotta coerce them. So one of them is money, obviously, and another the I is ideology. The C is coercion or compromise. That's where they set them up a little bit more. And the E is ego or excitement. So you play to that desire.
So money.
Yeah.
What's the I?
Money, ideology, coercion, and excitement. And then
money, ideology, coercion, and excitement. Yeah. Ideology.
They don't use ideology as much anymore as they did.
I was going to say ideology is.
They use that one in the Cold War more. Ideology is kind of turned into identity.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, good. Right. The ideology. I mean, my parents were true believers on their end.
Yeah.
Real true. I mean, they worked for the National Review and William F. Buckley, and he was very quickly exposed as the Pied Piper of the conservatives. And
now the Rascals one is really interesting because you can see this in what we were talking about with Jeffrey Epstein, the way that he might have been able to compromise people. And it's interesting because it's simple. It's actually influence tactics that good people use for good reasons, but also is used by bad people. And I'm pretty sure the guy who wrote the framework for this, his name is very hard to pronounce. He wrote the book Influence. I think he was working on Hillary Clinton's campaign, developing her persuasion strategy. But this one is called Rascals, R-A-S. This is Rascals in order to recruit a spy. Rascals, R-A-C-L-S. Reciprocation, that's the first one.
I missed that. So I missed what you said. You said I can't pronounce this guy's name. I'm only telling you to repeat it in case it's bad.
Siladini, I think, is his name. And the book he wrote is called Influence. It's a really good book, and he talks about in there how it can be used for good and how it can be used for bad, so being careful around it. And he talks about how you can spot people who are attempting to use it for bad. It's a great book. It's very long. It's got a lot of sociological
influence
studies.
What year?
That one, I think, was written like in 89. He wrote another one that just came out last year.
I mean, because there's a term. I went to get a bank account the other day, and the guy wrote on my application that I was an influencer.
Yes, that's what they call.
I mean, I'm not. I definitely have no influence. Ask me to try to sell your book for you. You will find that I will.
Yeah,
it's not help. But influence. So influence is now an occupation.
Yeah, usually they use that more for people who are major YouTube stars or Instagram stars.
Yeah, no, I know it is. I don't know why the guy wrote that for me, but it was weird.
So, Rascals, the first one, reciprocation, it says to always provide amenities for your target. So, Epstein, get on my plane, come stay on my island. The next one is authority. So, from your first impression, give off a sense of authority that you're an expert in the field, or maybe you are an expert in the field. So, like the British, you send down somebody who is a already known expert in the field, or Jeffrey Epstein, who pretended to be an expert but wasn't even. He didn't graduate college. He might have been smart, but and now they're finding out that he didn't have the amount of money that he presented himself as having. And then, and this next one we see in the case we just talked about. Of course, it wasn't spy recruiting, but the Popeyes publicity stunt. Scarcity. So when there's less of an item available, humans tend to believe that it's more attractive. So the rarer they are, the more expensive they are, humans tend to put more value and quality in them. So you make sure that there's less amount than there are the demand for it, and then you take it away before people stop wanting it, just like Popeyes did. What the example is that they have using this. My guess in that is they probably, when the spy is talking, they probably act like they're going to pull away from the offer. You know what? We got a bunch of, you can't, this isn't your thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The C is for commitment and consistency. This is one that you see with the indivisible movement. And there are very much people, spies being created or saboteurs being created through this commitment and consistency principle. It's where you get these small steps, just like they did with this CIA agent, the Chinese spy. You get them to do one small overt act, very, very tiny. Then you get them to do one a little bit bigger, then a little bit bigger. And then you frame it in turn. You get them to make a public statement about who they are, and then you frame these actions within that's consistent with who they have publicly stated that they are. So this is how you can get, as long as you can frame what somebody is doing as moral based on their moral standards, if you can twist it in their mind, then they will conduct the increasing level of actions. So if you're a progressive, it is moral and it is right to go shout down your senator because that senator is evil and he supports Donald Trump's racist agenda. So if you're against racist, like you told me you were, like this signature on this thing indicates that you are, then you're going to show up and you're going to lay down. Otherwise, you're a hypocrite. It's that
and you're
type
as
of
bad
stuff.
as the other guy, and we're going to not like you anymore.
And that's how they can twist those things, and they increase the level of action to the point of where by the time they're so deep in it, they're already compromised, and they got them by the, like I said.
Short hairs.
Exactly, the short hairs. There you go. And next is the liking. You talk like them. You dress like them. You use their cadence.
Oh my gosh, is that why
background.
AOC makes noise when she chews?
Yes. That's why they target these individuals towards the demographics that people. This is why it's always because the person, I say this all the time, the person who's going to be the one that is really good is going to look and sound just like the one who's really bad, because it's the one who's really bad's job to look exactly like the one who's really good. I know that was a little wordplay there.
That's a little hard to get. Yeah, you might have to repeat that one.
The person who you think is going to be the honest politician is going to look identical to the person who is the dishonest politician. It goes back to what you were saying.
Yes, and what you were saying about the criminal. The good criminal is the one who looks like the good guy.
And we think we would spot the bad criminal, but people are always focused on the other side. It's easy to spot the bad guy on the other side, but the one you need to pay attention to is the one who's on your side, because they have been spending their life training to make you to look and sound just like the person you trust more than anyone.
I have blown the minds, and I bet this is what you're referring to, of many, many Democrats who think they get it. Like Republicans are just disgusting. I can rattle off all their corruption, all their whatever. They're such bad people. And I'll say, why do you believe your side? And it's basically they can't really articulate it, but what they're really thinking is, well, I share that person's ideology. Clearly that person is being honest, because anyone being honest with themselves would share my ideology because I'm good and I'm honest.
Yes.
And I say, well, what's to prevent a Republican from acting like a Democrat just to get power?
Exactly.
And they're just like, huh? And I'll be like Hillary.
Yes.
Like she's the Republican in the room, according to your definition of a Republican, yet you won't see it because she's got the D.
Right, and that's exactly what this is.
And I'm not saying I think she's a Republican. I'm just saying I do. I mean, whatever. I think they're all this. Doesn't matter to me at all. They all want war. They're all big spending warmongers. But my point is that that's why the parties at the level of the politicians doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because you can't really trust them. They don't care about ideology. They'll do whatever.
Yeah. It says, the very first part of this, it says, we like people who are like us. That's the basic principle right there. And the final one of rascals, for spy recruiting is social proof. By observing others, particularly in unfamiliar environments, humans determine what the correct behavior is. So,
yes, I have said that about culture, and that's in the PSYOP book. I've always said that. Like, the problem with the multiculturalism is it creates confusion. I don't have a problem with it, but it just creates confusion. You want to key off of other people, and when you get it wrong, they tell you.
Yeah.
So you can stay in the group, so the group can function, and you know who to trust. You know if the person's going to be on time, or you know if they're going to cheat on you. Culturally what you're dealing with.
Yeah. And it talks about how, this is a CIA document, by the way. It talks about how you can see this behavior quite often with people in cults, and the combined effects of social proof along with the power of the commitment and consistency can help explain tragedies like the mass suicides in 1978 in the Jonestown cult and the Guwani.
Yeah.
And
a lot of those people didn't want to do it.
Right.
They kind of had to. But I always wondered if cult and culture came from the same root.
Possibly.
I don't think they do, but I wouldn't be surprised.
And here's an example they give of in directing agents what to do. The case officer might say to the target, "Other partners I've worked with have brought out documents by doing X." This both encourages the agent that not only should they do X, but reassures the agent that he's doing what others have done successfully as well. So whether it's true or not, because this person is the authority, they've already reeled them in a little bit. At that point in time, the critical faculties aren't really working on it because they've already accepted this person in, so they're going to do what they tell them to do. And that is what it sounds like this guy, this former CIA agent, got caught up in with this Chinese spy. So if somebody reaches out to you on LinkedIn, and if they start kind of smoozing you and you don't know who they are, and they might have a few connections with you, and you have valuable critical information that a spy might need, especially a Chinese spy, be very, very cautious.
Very cautious.
Very
so
cautious.
Before you wrap it, I have to say I think cult and culture are the same, but occult is not the same. Yes, do not get recruited by Chinese spies. That's the takeaway.
All right. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Monica, for all your insights. And
thank you.
Thank you, everyone who's donated and shared the show and left ratings and just done everything to help us grow. We appreciate it. And make sure to check out our new daily show, The Daily Prop, at thepropreport.com or the podcasting platforms. It's under the same banner as the Propaganda Report on iTunes and everywhere else. And anybody who wants to donate or help out, you can do so through PayPal or through Patreon at thepropreport.com. We will talk to y'all next time.
Later.